Ah, that's ugly. Ugh, ugh, 32-23, Browns beat the Colts week 5. Kevin Bowen back. Kevin's corner. We are in studio. Chris Presley across the way. 4:25 kickoff. I thought the best game of the weekend on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Entering week 5, I was really, really looking forward to that, man. And it was just somewhat entertaining, I guess. But in the end, a lot of banging head against the wall for Colts fans.
Definitely entertaining in the sense that the game was never over. I mean, the Browns were certainly trying to keep the Colts in the game.
Yeah, that's a good point. They had some drops there in the second half that were oof.
But, yeah, it was – we both predicted a Colts loss, but I think it's always still disappointing, especially to lose a game that way where you're so close on so many different opportunities and you just can't get it done.
Without a doubt. And we'll certainly hit on those, what I liked, what I didn't like. Typical Monday podcast and lots of Twitter questions. Just briefly, overall thoughts, Chris. This game so far was the toughest challenge for the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Browns are a better football team than the Bears. I don't think the Bears are a January football team. I know they won on Thursday night. Freaky things happen on Thursday night. I can't go there yet. And we get into this contender, pretender. Your record's still fine. 3-2 football team. Again, right. I've said it. If you're 5-2 after the bye when you beat the Lions, solid.
Mm-hmm.
I still think this is a team that will play in January. But that gauge yesterday is more of what you will see in January, potentially on the road against a pretty high-powered offense.
Right.
And you looked like a definite pretender yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It's October 12th. That's the good news. We have how long NFL football seasons are?
It's such a grind. I mean, especially in this year.
Right.
Who knows what's going to happen?
5 games, so you're almost a third of the way, so that seems like you're kind of far along, but things can change so much, and that's the beauty and sometimes the horror of it, whichever way you look at it. But right now, it's more of when we're measuring stick of January football, I see this team not at that level right now. And that's what's got to change. The good news is you'll have more of those games.
Mm-hmm.
Better teams, certainly, await. But yesterday, man, you just didn't look like a team that – you still have questions. Can you win a shootout? Can you beat a quality team on the road? Right now, those answers are no. The good news is, 11 games to try and rewrite that script.
Yeah, and I think yesterday was really – we talked about how many first true tests they were going to have. You look forward in the schedule – you see people like Deshaun Watson. You see people like Lamar Jackson yesterday, and Baker Mayfield's ability to extend plays and get outside of the pocket was huge.
Yeah. Is that what's my first one I didn't like?
The pass rush.
Pass rush, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to start here. So I feel like, and judging by my mentions after the game, my ratio on mentions of Phillip Rivers should be benched, should be, thrown out of the city of Westfield, Carmel, wherever he lives, versus mentions of the defense and the pass rush. Oh my God. It was like 100-1. I'm like, wait, did we not watch the first half? Did someone miss we just fast forward to the last 30 minutes? You gave up 20 points in one half of football. That's horrific.
Mm-hmm.
That is horrific. And I'm like, let's not lose sight of this. So I want to mention that first because, I'm a big believer, again, in game flow. And when your pass rush was, Halloween ghost-like, to keep with the theme of October there, which is just a horrible job by me to try and whatever. Just awful.
Yeah.
4-man rush, no chance. The 3-man rush, I mean, what do you expect? It's just Baker, he can be erratic. We've seen that. His completion percentage is not at the top of the NFL by any means. He'll give you some chances. And if you create more pressure or just send guys that makes that ball come out earlier and his legs can't extend those plays, I think he would have given you a few more chances.
Mm-hmm.
And he already gave you a lot. Okereke and Walker obviously took advantage of both of those in the second half. But I was really disappointed in the pass rush. Matt Eberflus is a big believer. The Colts don't blitz a whole lot. No. You might have sent me that note last week, or someone did, just about how few times the Colts really blitz throughout a game compared to the rest of the NFL. And, when you got a 10-play, 80-yard drive, and then another one, and it's like, oh boy, got to change it up. Got to do things differently. I thought it was more on the rush and less on the coverage. Now, I didn't think the coverage was great either. The miscommunication on Odell being guarded by Anthony Walker on a 4th and goal or
Right.
4th and 1, whatever that was. Come on. Like, I thought there was some Rock Yassin, Xavier Rhodes, those guys looking at each other like, wait, is this week 1 again? You know, who had who here? But I think the pass rush was more of the culprit for me. I thought DeForest Buckner was really quiet. Again, especially when the game mattered. And that game mattered defensively for the first half. You did a great job against the run. And I want to mention that as well. And I think we will in things that I like. But still, when you look at this team from a first half pressure standpoint, you got them behind the chains. You put them in some less than favorable situations, and you just got torched.
Yeah.
And Cleveland made some stupid catches for sure.
Oh,
And Jarvis Landry, gave you a few of those back in the second half with some of those drops. But man, it's just not enough rush, not enough pressure. The disrupting of timing that we always talk about, to me, the first level of that is with your pass rush.
Yeah.
And Houston, Autry, Stewart, I know Al-Qadim Muhammad had the sack in the second half, but again, first half, 4 drives for Cleveland, all traveling at least 65 yards, all multiple first downs.
mm-hmm.
All of them were like 8 or 9 plays, if not more.
Yeah, you said 9 plays minimum.
Yeah, and all ending in points. I mean, it's just this game to me. I looked at it at halftime, and this will get into our next point. I'm like, shit, this game might be over.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2 scores is a lot right now for this offense to try and come back from. It puts a lot of pressure on the defense, but still, you give up 20 points in a half. I mean, I just got off the morning show, and one of our hosts is saying, yeah, I'll give the defense a B. I'm like, whew, man, I'd love for you to be grading my
curve.
my papers here. It's kind of like, yeah, second half, sure, force some turnovers and largely kept Cleveland out of the end zone, I guess, because the only touchdown they had was that pick 6. But man, you give up 20 points in a half.
Yeah,
you're playing a game that you can't. You can't win that game. You can't win a shootout. We've talked about it. Right now, you can't win a shootout. So yeah, I thought the pass rush was an absolute joke.
Yeah, and there was times yesterday, I think I tweeted, we were only down 7. It felt like we were down 20, 21 points. We just didn't feel like we were in that game at times.
And one more thing on the pass rush. That offensive line's pretty good.
Yes, it is.
So when you are facing that offensive line, more pressure, more blitz, more. I mean, you got to do some things numbers-wise to try and create an advantage. If you think your 4-man rush is going to get home against those guys, Baker's going to do what he did to you in the first half.
How about the 2-man rush where they still completed a pass?
Second and 12. I've watched now 3 times. And Odell. That's who you completed to.
Right.
You drop 9, and Odell Beckham is open?
It made no sense.
Man, if this is what this defense is going to look like against good offenses. This is the barometer measuring stick stuff that we've talked about.
Well, let's get into, you talked about the 100-to-1 ratio, the thing that everyone wants to talk about, Phillip Rivers' play yesterday.
Just absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible from him.
And he knew it.
Yeah, his bad is really bad.
Yes.
And I think that's what, so many people are mentioning the Brissett, bench him for Brissett. The thing about Brissett is that Brissett's bad doesn't look as bad as Rivers' bad. If that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense.
Brissett in the fourth quarter, he won't attempt those passes. He'll just throw it in the dirt and, okay, and you're punting. It's like a slow death.
Mm-hmm.
Rivers, it'll be a pretty quick death. Not to get morbid here on this edition of Kevin's Corner, but I guess I did. Decent numbers in the first half. He only had 3 drives, 10 points. Rivers, I thought, again, pretty good job, really, in the first half. But that pick 6, man, I don't know what was worse, the decision or the throw.
Right.
Probably I don't know what he was thinking.
Across the field,
he just doesn't throw the ball away.
No.
He really doesn't throw the ball away. I have questions about him outside the numbers right now. I know I asked both Frank and Phillip this after the game, and obviously they both looked at me cross-eyed. But I hold my breath when he throws laterally, horizontally. You're on the left hash, and you're trying to throw outside the numbers on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
That ball's traveling for a long time,
Yes,
man. I've got my moped on 465, and Mahomes is next to me with his – whatever, IndyCar.
Right.
It's one of those with him right now. It's weird, though, Chris. when he throws vertically down the seam, it doesn't look that bad to me. Anywhere near as bad as it does outside the numbers.
No, I agree.
Like, you hit the play to Doolin. You hit the play to Johnson. I tweeted this in the first half, and, of course, you got to love when people just didn't age well. Rivers attempts passes Brissett would not attempt last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing and a bad thing. It's too, and that's what I try to get at when the signing was happening. Guys, you're going to get a more entertaining quarterback. You're going to get a quarterback that'll do some stuff that you didn't see last year, good and bad. The Colts have hit. If you look at the big plays the Colts have had passing offense-wise this year, it is many more than Brissett gave this passing offense last season. Many more. The problems are the turnovers are just so ugly, and the pick sixes are just. I think it was that Browns dude first snap in the NFL or something, or first snap playing defense. Not the Harrison one, the second pick. I mean, yeah, it's just it looked like Tolzien. It did. It looked like Rams opening day 2017, and you can't have that. When you have questions about him physically, you can't have questions about him mentally.
Right.
And that pick six, especially to Hilton. Were you down 9 on the second pick? I think it was 29-20 at that point.
I don't remember the score at that point.
Yeah, it seemed like it was late, but you also I think have to keep in mind of this is like the Rivers you signed up for. This is the one that wilted away with the Chargers last year. If you put him in these situations, you give up 20.5. And he didn't. I mean, it's not like he turned the ball over in the first half and had short fields. No, your defense just sucked.
Right.
So if you're going to give up 20, this dude ain't bringing you back. This passing offense ain't bringing you back. So I think it's all perspective of what you put on his plate. He can't handle too much right now. Week 2, week 3, week 4, the defense didn't need to be historically good like they were in those 3 weeks. Even if they were just okay, you still would have won those football games. You're playing from ahead. You're controlling the game. You need your rushing offense to help him out more as well. So yeah, man, I just thought it was some terrible throws, terrible decision making from him. I worry about him outdoors. You worry about him in windier stuff. The safety. He shouldn't throw, I put that more on Reich. And we'll get it. Do I have Reich written down?
You do.
Okay.
Yeah. How much of that goes on Hines as well by catching at the 4?
Yes, definitely. And let's pause because I know we're gonna get to that later. I want to focus here on Rivers. And I just thought that safety decision making, they didn't give him a lot of help there, but he can't make that throw there. So if you're gonna tell me at the start of the day you're gonna be down 10 at half, your run game's gonna be non-existent, I would have said, okay, yeah, Colts lose, and I don't really think they seriously threaten the rest of the way. And I never got the feeling the Colts were actually threatening to win that game, put in overtime, whatever you want to call it. That's just where you are right now at quarterback. Lots of questions about Brissett, benching, Eason. We'll get to those in Twitter questions, but that was the worst Rivers we've seen this season, situationally still. 4 of 11 on third down, 1 of 4 in the red zone. That ain't winning football games.
No, it's not.
So, for how good he was, week 2, week 3, week 4, which he was, yesterday was just terrible. Just terrible.
Frank says he still believes in him, says he's still playing good football. What are your thoughts on Coach?
I'm going to hold off on the accountability stuff, Chris, until we get into Twitter questions. What I'm going to go with here with Reich is 2 decisions that stand out to me during that game. First off, I don't know how the Grover Stewart fumble wasn't a fumble.
Yeah.
Great challenge by Frank.
Yep.
Smart to challenge him. I went back. I've watched the replay numerous times live because they never showed us a replay live with the whistle. The whistle does not get blown until the ball's out.
Correct.
So that was just a terrible mistake by the officiating crew. Okay, so that means you've exhausted a challenge and you lose the challenge, which means one more challenge and you're done, no matter, win or lose. That's Reich listening to the people upstairs to tell him to challenge the second one, the OBJ catch. I think it was a 1st and 10, 27-yard gain. Not a turnover. Obviously, turnovers all get reviewed, and scoring plays all get reviewed. It wasn't this 3rd and 15 that went for 18 yards and a toe tap, and you could have got off the field, but now they're keeping, it was a nice play, but in the grand scheme of things, it was pretty minuscule in terms of challenging plays. That decision to me was just a terrible decision. OBJ actually caught the ball. Sort of thought process. I feel like he saw Jarvis Landry go, hurry up.
Yep.
And that was panic mode. And the Colts were like, oh, wow, Jarvis Landry thinks he dropped it. Let's challenge it. And again, you're going to play with 2.5 quarters without a challenge? You got lucky in a way. You didn't need a challenge any more plays. But this is the game manager side of Reich that I talk about. Brilliant. I mean, play caller, I still think he is an above average play caller in the NFL. I know this season, the offense has obviously struggled, but you obviously love the 4th and 2 design of the Jonathan Taylor touchdown and the shovel potential of Trey Burton there and all that. But you got game management situations against good football teams, man. You've got to be on it. And he's lucky that didn't burn the Colts more. And then secondly, I thought the safety play call was one of the worst we've seen. 7-step drop. Rivers, who moves as well as me, has to turn his back for the play action fake. So he has no idea what the rush is doing in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
He's now in the end zone. You have a backup left tackle in the football game. And you really haven't thrown the ball much in the second half. Remember, Rivers had the pick 6. They call 8 straight runs after the pick 6. And then I think Rivers had a couple dumps to Hines. That's the only time he had thrown it since the pick 6.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen there? Rivers going to throw some 50-yard bomb. Your O-line's going to hold up, and you're going to flip the field? Like, okay, you've had some success running it. You still have plenty of time. Just get out of your shadow. And, yes, the Hines thing and Rivers throwing it, he needs to find his hot read and just, I don't know, ground it in a much more allowed way.
Mm-hmm.
But Reich put him in a horrible situation. Reich mentioned after the game, basically Jonathan Taylor thought the safety was going to blitz. They were going to have chips on both edges, so he wouldn't be worried about the edges. The safety shows blitz, pulls back. Taylor thinks he's coming, so Taylor goes to pick that guy up, and now Clark's one-on-one, and the rest is history, man. So you just can't call that. You cannot call that play in that situation. And then the challenge, not only do you lose a challenge, but then you're losing a timeout as well. And, I mean, there were some end-of-half situations where, who knows, you could have saved some more time and potentially got 3 out of it or something like that. So this doesn't happen a lot with Reich. But, again, when you're playing these elite teams, or better teams, I should say, these decisions are huge over the course of a game.
Right.
And I thought it was really poor from the head coach yesterday.
Were you surprised at all with how often we let LaRaven go one-on-one with Garrett and not have a Jack Doyle over there or someone, Mo Alley, to help chip?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised. And I know that they did some help stuff. It seemed like early on it'll be quick rhythm. That's how we're going to counter, which makes sense. But I was surprised. Reich said he didn't feel like Garrett wrecked the game. I think he did wreck it. He had a red zone sack, 4 quarterback hits. He causes the pressure on the safety. And, again, he might not wreck it purely from his stats, but he wrecks it from you did have to help at times. And Rivers just consciously knows that LaRaven Clark is his left tackle. And, again, this is my biggest gripe of the Chris Ballard offseason for the here and now. The long-term gripe is, again, quarterback is still this dangling carrot. For the here and now, it's depth at tackle. And a little bit of long-term, obviously, thrown in there as well, but still. And, yesterday we saw why Anthony Costanzo is the most important player on this football team.
Well, disappointing loss. We got through the things that you did not like yesterday. What were some bright spots that you saw from the Colts?
Well, you got to go with the rookie kick returner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a spark. Isaiah Rodgers, 101-yard kick return. I believe I saw longest play of the year in the NFL. I didn't realize there hadn't been a longer return yet. And really, Chris, we didn't see his 4.2 speed until the end. That was a very well blocked.
Yep.
Some subtle movements, kind of cutting in and out. I know I'm going to miss names, but I've gone back and watched it a couple times now. Ashton Doolin, tremendous down the field. I mean, that's your other kick returner, kind of. He's blocking his ass off down the field. How about Anthony frickin' Walker? Plays every defensive snap, barely practices on Friday, and he's busting his ass on special teams with a big block there to spring it. Wilkins, Carey. I know I'm missing Glasgow, I think, was involved. Just really good. And hilarious to see Bubba Ventrone sprinting down the sidelines, the special teams coordinator, at that return. So, we talked about it, I think, on the Wednesday pod. Chris Ballard mentioned we think Isaiah's going to spark one. They've moved him into the permanent kick returner.
Right.
And still leaving Hines at punt returner. So that's some juice, man. Special teams unit continues to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Blankenship making kicks you were missing last year, so kudos to him as well. And then, honestly, the only other thing I liked was the run defense. And big-time kudos to that unit. I think the Browns in the first half with their running backs were 1.7 per rush. That is a awesome number.
Yeah, especially for that team. The performances they've shown this year.
They were the number one rushing offense.
Right.
In the NFL. Entering week 5. And so, Chris, I commend that group for what they did against the run, but then I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes the pass rush even more maddening because you put them behind the chains. You always hear, stop the run first, have fun on third down, whatever the saying is, blah, blah, blah. You weren't having fun on third down, man. They were carving you up. So the run defense, again, has been pretty consistent for you, really ever since that opener, and I thought they did a beautiful job. Great against David Montgomery the week before, and I know you had a little leakage late, but to me, the game was over at that point. So
right.
Kudos to the run defense.
All right. Anything else you want to touch on, or should we jump into Twitter questions?
Oh, boy. Pray for us.
All right. This one comes from Gary. Rivers is this year's Adam Vinatieri. Tell me I'm wrong, except this time we've made our bed and now we're stuck with it. Brady is better, even though he doesn't know what down it is. Bridgewater, especially at the price. And even Jameis, even though he's only $1 million and the last two are young. For heaven's sake, Reich is the quarterback whisperer, right? On the other hand, he does want to say thank you for your Instagram lives and sharing your life with us.
Yeah, we go halftime Instagram live every week. We had a little Rosie Bowe appearance yesterday at halftime. She was asleep. I think a lot of people wish they were asleep as well. Rivers is this year's Adam Vinatieri. Okay, stop. Come on now. Adam Vinatieri was setting NFL records for historically bad kicking last season. Rivers has been, and again, this is not me carrying Phillip Rivers water. This is the facts. Phillip Rivers has been pretty much a middle-of-the-pack quarterback this season. Completion percentage still really high. Yards per attempt still pretty high. Quarterback rating, I think right now he's like 15th, 16th in the league. Again, his bad, which I really chalk up as like the game's borderline over at this point. His bad just looks horrific, and it's kind of a cup of tea. What do you want? Do you want a risk taker who will throw the pick six, or a guy who's not even going to take the risk?
True.
That's pretty much what you're looking at, Brissett versus Rivers. So I can't go there. And the money argument is fair that he lays out with some of these quarterback decisions. My biggest thing with quarterback this offseason, Chris, was this. Don't tie your hands multiple years to someone you don't believe in. That was my worry about Bridgewater.
Yeah.
I think Carolina gave him, was it 4-ish? I don't know, somewhere around there. Like, no. If you have worries, don't do that. You don't want to be playing Band-Aid quarterback purgatory. But yeah, comparing Rivers to Vinatieri from last year, dude, no. That's like, it's like saying Anthony Davis is Brian Scalabrine. I don't know. No. And obviously Rivers isn't Anthony Davis, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I was watching the game at a buddy's house up in Noblesville, and I looked at him at one point and I said, it's bad that I get scared now every kick. Like last year scarred me so much that it's not one of those like, okay, it's 32-yarder, now you can go to the bathroom, restroom break. Like, no, I got to sit here and watch because you never know what's going to happen now.
We are scarred.
Right.
Yeah, fourth down is no longer grab the beer, go pee. It's you hope CBS has one extra commercial so you can go pee during the commercial break.
This next one's from John. With the explosive play, could Doolin start to see a lot more playing time?
Yeah, John, really fair question. He's playing a little bit more than I thought. It was, I guess, he didn't play a whole lot yesterday, but I think before yesterday it was like 25% the week before, 20% the week prior to that. The thing about Doolin is I've never seen him make more than one or two meaningful plays in training camp in both seasons he's been here. But you need a jolt offensively. And he gave you that, the vertical play to him, the vertical play to Marcus Johnson. I mean, those were some nice chunks early on in the game that helped you move it. So, yeah, I'd like to see his 4.2 speed, I think it's 4.2, used a little bit more offensively, but I just don't think he's the most natural wide out for you.
This one comes from Jorge. Why was Jack Doyle a non-factor in the passing game? He can still block, but not so much beyond.
Dude, the Doyle targets, and honestly more so the Mo Alley Cox targets, just mind-boggling to me. I think one for each. I don't know, maybe Doyle had 2. No catches combined for those 2. They've really shrunk Doyle's playtime. They've really scaled back. And I kind of get it, but I'm like, wait. I thought Alley Cox would then absorb a lot of it. He hasn't really taken this big uptick. I still think he can be you certainly know Doyle's ceiling, but I still think he can help you out on some third down, just post up, trustworthy, boom, boom. The timing's got to be great, though. Because I feel like Doyle, there's no way he has more than 5 catches on the year. It seems like 2 or 3 of them are off these play actions, where he's wide open, loaded up, short yardage, boom, there's Doyle over the top, wide open. Sneaks out of the back, sneaks out of the inline blocking, something like that. So, yeah, I love Jack, but yeah, it's just not all the way there right now with him. Physically, obviously banged up, and I'd like to see Alley Cox a little bit more involved.
Jason wants to know, still convinced Rivers is back next year? I understand this was a team loss, but still, if Rivers is back, who does the blame fall on more, Ballard or Reich? Reich for lobbying or Ballard for caving?
Jason, when I say that I'm still convinced Rivers is back next year, I'm speaking from the Colts. Not from my personal, what I would do. He would not be back.
Yeah.
I know the ceiling. I know his age. I'm ready to start the next chapter of the most important position in sports. If Rivers is back, who does the blame fall on more, Ballard or Reich? Can we say both? I mean, this is a very collaborative decision. I mean, Ballard ultimately is the personnel decider.
Correct.
Frank Reich obviously has some influence, but your draft picks and your signings, it falls on Ballard. If Ballard wants to draft a quarterback high, he does it. If he doesn't want to sign Phillip Rivers, he won't. It just seems like, this is both of them that are heavily involved in this decision. I also feel like NFL teams, I just don't see them committing to the future as much as I would like them to. And I think the Colts are in a situation where they're like, guys, we got to win now. And I think that influenced some of this decision with going with Rivers as more of the, in their opinion, highest ceiling Band-Aid for this season instead of totally moving on to the future. So, and I also think this is one game. I don't think Rivers offers you this incredibly high ceiling, but you got to think your run game's going to start helping them at some point. And if it does, I do think that can change the look of this offense.
Scotty wants to know, where was the pass rush in the first half?
Scotty brutal, man. I mean, somebody tweeted at me. I think it was maybe Randy. Shout out to Randy. Baker's had enough time to knit a sweater.
The next Progressive commercial. There you go.
There you go. I mean, great line. Small. I mean, yeah. He had just the 4-man rush. I know the sack numbers they're a little bit skewed for me. I would push back on people that are like, the Colts pass rush has been at a high level this year. I know there are some numbers you can point to that they've been at that level, but it's not consistent enough for me. If you're going to play this defense, really got to get home with 4. And I don't think the Leonard loss was that. I don't think Leonard's absence would contribute to a whole bunch of sacks. Leonard hasn't had a sack this year.
Right.
Hasn't had a takeaway. I mean, Leonard has not had the splash plays that were I think only 2 tackles for loss. Like, there haven't been as much of the all-pro playmaking that we're used to him. So, yeah, man, I would have liked to have seen some more blitzing.
Creighton wants to know, why was Cox never on the field?
Yeah, I mean, dude, we're getting a lot of it. Yeah, it's a great question. I think he technically was targeted on the pick, if I'm not mistaken, over the middle there late. A screen. Let him rumble. Let, 6'5", 270 get in the open field and then tackle him.
Yeah.
I think you'd have to create some personnel that that defense has to game plan for. And I think Ali Cox could offer some of that. It's not like we're spending 10 hours on how to take away Mo Ali Cox. It's just oh, wow, 81's out here. He looks big, and they're going to give him the football. So we should probably at least know where he is.
Yeah, I mean, if you give him a chunk play per game, why not?
Right, and yes, vertically, I'd like to see it tested. But even a dump, a screen, make those guys tackle him.
Yeah.
You know?
This one comes from David. Is the loss of Mack more detrimental than we think, pass game and run game? This will sound absurd, but do you think Mack made the offensive line look better than it is? Or are the backs not being patient enough nor seeing the holes that Mack would have? As usual, great pod. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate that, David. That's a really interesting thought. I don't – maybe we aren't giving enough credit for the absence of Marlon Mack. And this is coming from a guy that I feel like I like Mack, and I've stated that on this podcast. But – yeah, man, it's something's just a little off with Taylor in the run game. And the O-line is not helping him, and we talked about that last week. But still, it just seems like it's not that bad for the yards per carry to continue to be where it's at right now. So, maybe there is more of a decisive, and Mack in 2017 certainly had his issues vision-wise. So maybe this is some sort of a rookie contract thing. I thought Taylor played in a college offense that was much more advantageous for a rather seamless transition. Certainly look at Clyde Edwards. Granted, LSU's offense is more probably Kansas City-like and just a lot of shotgun, a lot of spread stuff. So, David, I do think it is a good point that you put out there.
Eric wants to know, after 5 games this season, he is convinced that Frank Reich is having trouble calling the games for Rivers and not to mention Taylor. One more week of this, and he's ready for Jacoby.
I mean, why? Like, why see Jacoby again? This goes back to the debate we had in the offseason about if this season goes off the rails, who do you want? Put in Eason.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, I'm not. And again, this is Kevin Bowen talking, not Chris Ballard, Frank Reich thoughts. I would just move straight to Eason. I do not need to see Brissett again. I've seen him start 30 games in the NFL. I'm good. Good. Nice backup. Should have a future in this league. But no, I'm moving on. As far as the play calling, you have trouble with Rivers' play calling. You've already called plays for him his entire career, or at least, several years in his career. Point blank period, Chris, they've got to get the run game going.
Mm-hmm.
That is just you have to do it. If you don't alleviate that stress off Rivers, because that's the difference. Brissett had this great run game last year.
True.
Rivers hasn't sniffed that.
No.
Hasn't sniffed that.
Dustin says, I know you have said how important Costanzo is, but do you think he would have held off Garrett better with him in there? Do you think we would have changed? Do you think that would change the game, keeping that pressure off of Rivers?
I think it would have helped you out big time. I do. We mentioned earlier 4 quarterback hits for Garrett, 1 sack, a hurry, forced safety, blah, blah, blah. It's more of the game plan, though. It's Reich is thinking, oh, boy, do I have to let 2 guys in to chip on the play action? Boy, do I need to go quicker rhythm when I would really love to hit on a 5 or 7 step drop here? And then it's one less skill guy.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look deeper at the Garrett numbers, it's the 4 quarterback hits and the sack and the pressure on the safety. That's obvious. But I also point to situational. You're 4 of 11 on 3rd down. You're 1 of 4 in the red zone. It's one less skill player that's out there to help an offense that desperately needs help passing offense-wise.
Tanner asked, should we have benched Phillip this game? I'm not saying Jacoby would have saved us, but I think that any other quarterback that performed that poorly should have gotten benched. I just don't want to see us put up with mediocrity anymore.
Well, again, Jacoby was the definition of mediocre. So the debate about benching Chris, Rivers in the first half was 8 of 11, 120 something, 2 scoring drives and your 3 there's if you pose this question to Frank Reich, he would laugh like none other. Just like, what? I'm going to bench the guy that just led the league in completion percentage through the first 3. Like, they are not the whole benching idea. It really happens very, very little, especially with guys that have shown you something this season. And again, if you flip the halves, maybe you have more of a compelling argument. But when you look like that in the first half, I'm sorry, but a benching I don't think would have done anything to save this game.
Andrew says, I don't see this happening, but there needs to be a quarterback change. Brissett played well pre-injury last year. In his opinion, he played better in the first 5 games last year than Rivers has played so far this year. I don't think it's an overreaction. I just want to win football games.
Yeah, Andrew, I'd strongly disagree with you there. I don't think he was better than Rivers through 5 games last year. I've kind of hinted at this throughout the podcast. It's flavor of what you want as your quarterback. Do you want the 3 and outs when the game's already over? Or do you want the turnovers that make the game look even worse when it's already over? Because that's pretty much the difference. And I come back to the comment I made earlier about Rivers throws balls that Brissett wouldn't throw. There's good with that. Look at the Johnson deep ball early in the game. Look at the Doolin deep ball early in the game. This offense vertically through the seams, down the middle, is creating many more big plays than you did last season. And this offense was okay. They had 3 drives in the first half and scored 10 points. That's not bad. You gave up 20. That is the issue to me. Now, he exacerbates it when he throws a pick 6 and just a horrific decision and it's over. But I just think you got to know what you're getting with Rivers. Rivers and Brissett, these are not guys that are built to lead comebacks, multi-score comebacks. Rivers, I think, gives you more of a chance to be steady throughout a game and moving the football a little bit more vertically. I mean, his interceptions have come in these obvious passing situations, and that's what you just have to avoid. So I think people in this city just hate Rivers, to be frank. It's like he was the enemy.
Yeah.
And we hear all the negativity around him, and he yelled at our fans and all this stuff. So the first moment of adversity, now we really hate him.
Yeah.
It's not horrifically 32nd ranked quarterback bad from Rivers through 5 games. Look at the entire sample size, folks. This is not me carrying Rivers water. This is me saying benching him for Jacoby or saying that Jacoby was better. No way. And I go back to the run game. He's getting nothing from that run game, whereas Jacoby had great rushing numbers with this offense early on in the season. So it's all flavor of what you want. Do you want the 3 and outs to end a game, or do you want a turnover?
Mm-hmm.
Jacoby's grounding balls as they're trying to come back in games, and Phillips just throwing them to the other team. I mean, the end result's the same.
Yeah.
But I guess it's a little bit more from an entertainment standpoint. But still, man, the completion percentage, the yards per attempt numbers, the interceptions, he's got 5. I'd put 4 squarely on him. The Mo Alley-Cox one I still don't put on him from that Minnesota game. And you'd like to see more touchdown numbers. I know touchdown numbers can get skewy, and I've talked about that. That's got to improve. You got to get better situationally. But right now, I still think Rivers is giving you better football than what Brissett gave you last. It's not much better, but it is slightly better than that. But I mean, neither of these guys are giving you January football.
No.
January football quarterback play. Sorry.
This is from Stampede Statistics. Frank Reich has been a huge proponent of prospects that haven't panned out in Indy. Mentions Ebron, Funches, more and more Rivers comes to mind. At this point, should any stock be given into Reich's talent evaluation abilities, and should Ballard start vetoing some of Reich's players once?
I mean, I guess this kind of goes back to our earlier question. I mean, Ballard is the ultimate decision maker, folks. He listens and values Frank Reich's opinion, but at the end of the day, you are the general manager. Frank Reich makes the decisions. 60 minutes, game planning, Monday through Saturdays. You make all the personnel, so you have the veto power.
And money is a big factor.
Money's a huge factor. And I would totally. I mean, the Funches thing. I mean, the dude shattered his collarbone after having a somewhat decent week 1. I'm not throwing him in there. Ebron was honestly what you thought he'd be. We saw it yesterday. Mm-hmm. Some of those drops Ebron had or borderline fumbles he had late in the game. Look, Ballard is not signing guys that he doesn't believe in. So this is not all on, well, Frank said he liked him, so I'm going to sign him. No. Ballard's looking into this too.
Jordy wants to know, if you had to put a percentage on Rivers getting benched for either Eason or Brissett, what would that be? And which would you rather see replace? Which of those quarterbacks would you rather see replace him?
Well, yeah, I mean, for this week, it's negative 1,000%. There's no chance in hell Philip Rivers is benched for this week. I wouldn't put it much higher than, I don't know, 15 or 20 for the entire season. It really has to go off the rails. Really has to go off the rails for them to bench Rivers. And as I've been saying, I would go with Eason. I know what I have in Jacoby. We all watched him last season. Start the development. And the development for Eason is going to have to come in game reps. It's going to have to. So yeah.
Kev, how about this? We're gonna pivot to a little more positive.
Oh,
how about that?
That was a curveball.
Yeah, Bailey.
I was looking fastball again.
Bailey says 2 bright spots, if you will look at Sunday, could be T.Y. and Blankenship. Says, I think it's great that the kicker can actually put consistent points on the board. Then you have to like the connection between T.Y. and Phillip. What are your thoughts?
Again, Blankenship been good, man. And he's making kicks you missed last season, like I said. I do find it weird, though. We're now 5 games in. He still hasn't kicked anything longer than 44.
Yeah.
But still, kicks are, and oftentimes these kicks are pretty much down the middle. So, yeah, really nice from Hot Rod. 2 windy, environments the last 2 weeks, stepping up there as well. A little bit better from Hilton. I know the pass interference stuff, I feel like he's probably drawn at least 3 or 4 this season. And I hate to say it, but, dude, you just need even more from him. Right now, you need even more from him. I mean, yeah. I know it's a heavy burden to put on his shoulders without Pittman, without Campbell, and things like that, but you just need him to be a dog for you. And, yes, better yesterday. Probably one of his more productive games, honestly, in over a year. But still, you just need – was that a drop on the far sideline? Again, CBS never gave us a great replay of that. It was a catchable ball, in my opinion. There was kind of maybe a 3rd down on the far sideline, I think, at some point. But, yeah, dude, you just got to have a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And that might sound greedy, but this offense is in that state right now.
All right, Matt says, Colts offense, 16 points. Philip Rivers, negative 9 points. I know Rivers contributed to those 16 points, but it's feeling like a 500 season and quarterback purgatory. Am I being too reactionary, or are we in trouble?
Well, Matt, you aren't being too reactionary over the Colts are in quarterback purgatory.
Yeah.
I mean, without it, until you have the long-term answer, you are in. And quarterback purgatory should be called quarterback hell, because it is a hellacious thought process in finding the right guy. It is difficult. It is not easy. It makes your fan base go crazy. It keeps you up at night. So, yeah, quarterback purgatory is very scary. Yeah, I would call that hell, to be honest with you, especially when it's like you think you're not in it, but you aren't just willing to admit it.
Yeah,
that might be the crazier thing. I guess I think we have some Reich accountability questions that I'll hold off of. But yeah, if you think you're, thinking you're not in quarterback purgatory, yet you really are, dude. That's like me walking into Rosie's room and thinking the pacifier is just going to cure it, and she's looking at me with the raccoon eyes, and it's 2:15 in the morning.
Here you go. See ya.
And I'm just like, okay, all right, I'm up. Here we are.
Joshua asks, what's wrong with holding employees accountable?
Well stated, Joshua, there. Certainly this is in reference to Frank Reich's post-game comments. Pretty rosy. And that's not a Rosie Bow reference, from Frank Reich after the game yesterday. He's never been a guy that will publicly call out, is too harsh of a term, publicly somewhat criticize a player. And I know there's such a fine line with that. Are you losing a locker room if you do that? Are you getting out of your own skin? It seems like that would be out of Frank Reich's skin. Bruce Arians, right in his skin. That's BS, and it's kind of like, when you start to differ from your personality, I think that's when guys in your own locker room will question you. I think what fans and maybe even players would like to hear is Phillip's got to be better, and we all have to be better. You kind of quickly throw in the move from the individual to the team line. Look, I put him in some tough situations. Phillip also made some throws that he'd like to have back, things like that. It was very quickly like he played a ton of good football. He played really good football. And I'm like, Oh man, I don't know if we watched the same game, Frank. So yeah, it was probably the most pissed off I've seen Rivers post game.
Yep.
It was the most coddling I've seen Frank after that sort of performance. A lot of coddling, which again, Frank can and he usually walks a decent line of still being somewhat critical for him. Again, this is a former preacher that what you're talking about. You're not going to get fire and brimstone. And honestly, how many NFL coaches really go full fire?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, like college football is where you got the crazy coaches, which I absolutely love. But the NFL, for the most part, you're not getting that. Where I think you really worry, Joshua, is this. Publicly, okay, say whatever. But if that starts to impact your actions, that's when you've got a major issue. And that's what happened last year. Vinatieri, he's great. Least of our worries. Hall of Famer, blah, blah, blah. And you continually run him out there. That's where the issue is. If your actions also back up your flaky words and it costs you football games, that is an issue. And like it goes back to the Brissett top 20 quarterback thing. Oh, gosh. Are you just saying that to try and hype him up, give him a boost? Because if you really mean that and you hold on to him thinking – and you pay him a certain amount, that's when you get into issues organizationally, roster building, all those things. So that's where we kind of, okay, words are words. When your actions are the same words,
right.
Yeah, that's when heads start to get called.
Coco asks, should Reich be chastised for the lackluster play calling on either side of the field? Says it seems like our strengths are not being utilized properly, and someone needs to put their foot down for these kinds of coaching errors.
Yeah, I mean, Coco, great name. My former uncle's dog's name. I guess my current uncle, I should say. Former dog would have been the better wording there. Yeah, he's still alive. Love you, Uncle Dan. Yeah, game management, you know. We talked about this earlier. This goes back to the challenge. This goes back to safety. This is a really important year for Frank Reich. Really important year for Chris Ballard. We have stressed that on this podcast. And we'll continue to evaluate. Beauty of the NFL. They're going to get back out there in 6 weeks. And you know the real beauty? They're playing the Bengals.
Correct.
Slump buster, folks. Should be. Better be. 9.5-point favorite. I saw early on.
I'm going to piggyback off that real quick, Kev. We talked earlier in this year, and you especially mentioned wanting to see a little bit more hurry up. Were you surprised with how methodical they were late in that game?
Yeah, agreed. I'm glad you brought that up. It was a very I got that you had 3 timeouts and the 2-minute warning, but yeah, it was muddle. It was let's just kind of get to the line and let Rivers. If you need to dick around at the line for 20 seconds, okay, but. Don't let the Browns change personnel. Don't feel like they can rest. Let Myles Garrett put his hands on the hips and catch his breath. Yeah. That's a good point that you brought up there.
This one comes from Marcus. Rivers blew the game, but people better not forget that the defense gave up 4 straight scoring drives to start it.
Hallelujah. I mean, thank you, Mark. Like, we have forgotten about the first half on Sunday. Everyone wants to talk about the quarterback, and we have, rightfully so. But what the hell was that first half defensive performance? 20 points in one half of football. Every single drive, Chris. I'm sorry. Sorry. It's every drive. It's 10 plays. It's 75 yards. It's a score. It's 10 plays. It's 82 yards. It's a score. It's 8 plays. 68. A score. You were in a horror. And yes, you do have a hand tied behind your back right now with your quarterback, which we said, like, you got to know what you're getting with Rivers. $25 million, which I know a lot of people like. That's really middle of the pack starting quarterback money. If you maybe slightly above middle of the pack, it's not as absurd.
That's around franchise tag, right?
I think, yeah, I do. It's pretty much like the old dudes that have done something in the NFL. That's what you get, and yeah, just kind of keep on playing the position.
Right.
But yeah. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for the question.
Justo says, "Why did we pay Rivers all that money? Bridgewater and Newton are playing better and getting paid less."
Yeah, I mean, the Newton thing was weird, how long that lasted in the offseason. I had questions about him health-wise. I still have questions about him health-wise. Can he hold up for a 16-game season? So I can't sit here and act like I was standing on a table for Newton by any means. I stood on a table for Bridgewater in the sense of if you believe he can be long-term. That would be the smarter move.
Right.
But if you don't believe, stay away and only do 1 year. That was my biggest thing. Rivers, $25 million. Okay, unfortunately that's the asking price for quarterbacks in today's NFL. Sure, Dalton could have been a lot cheaper, and Mariota this, and Nick Foles this. They're all mediocre quarterbacks. Like, let's be honest here. I understood why the Colts did it. They bet on the familiarity. They bet on better offensive line play. They bet on a run game, improved defense. And so far, some of those bets haven't really cashed for them.
Kevin Eduardo is begging you to please give him some good news, like which young players played well, because yesterday Rivers killed us.
Okereke?
His name was said a lot.
That club, man, that interception.
I know, yeah.
Boy, yeah, that was out of his radius, and you felt bad for him, man. He did everything early on. It's like guarding LeBron. It's like you do everything, and then, and one with the left hand and flipping it off the backboard. Some of those catches. He's probably the one. We mentioned Rodgers. I'd say Okereke. Eduardo, I'm going to have to search a little bit longer for that, but I'd say Bobby gave you some good minutes.
This one comes from Old Daner. Could you touch on the Colts having a player character evaluator and not an injury risk evaluator? Don't know if that's even a thing, but this can't be a coincidence.
Yeah, Chris is a pretty good point. Like, it's interesting. The Colts have Brian Decker, who, evaluates character, and how do you judge injuries? How do you predict college resume and how tough a guy is? Because it's difficult. All these, you try to get everyone here at the Combine, try to get all the medicals even, but still, the medical department at Notre Dame is not the medical department at South Carolina State, or, like Quentin Nelson's medical records and Darius Leonard's medical records probably looked a little different.
Yeah.
Just in how much is put into all of that. So it's tough, man. I think it's a very fine question. It's something I might ask Chris Ballard now that I think about it in the offseason, but that's difficult.
Well, sticking there with some injuries, Wake Spike says, hey, guys, Hooker, Campbell, and Mack are all out again. Each one of them had concerning injuries in college ahead of being drafted. Ballard likes to look for freak attributes, which makes sense since the game reps can't be recreated to help the players grow. Going forward, should we aim to get more durable players and focus less on getting the freaks and more on guys who are going to show up?
Yeah, I would push back on Mack and Campbell had injury concerns in college. I didn't see any of that. I would probably have to double-check that, but I don't recall them missing many games, if any. It just kind of goes back to our earlier question, man. How flukish are injuries? You know, are you predicting the Dak Prescott injury?
Oh my God.
Reese, that was reminiscent of Reese Fountain. That is the same injury Reese had. What Dak happened to Dak yesterday, that was Reese Fountain at Grand Park. The audible screams, the players turning their heads. I mean, I was 10 feet away from that play happening. It was just horrific. So,
did you hear Romo's comment on that injury?
Cramp.
Yeah. Poor Romo.
God, Tony, you can't predict everything, right?
No, right.
Just sit that one out. Let Nance do his emotional thing and move on.
All right, this is from Gregory. What's the latest estimated return date for Campbell and Pittman? When do we realistically see them back?
Yeah, Pittman, I'd say early November. He's got to miss, I think, at least Sunday, and then you got the bye week. Yeah, I don't expect him back till early November, and you hope. With that was a pretty serious injury that he's got to rehab in terms of where you look at him. I mean, crutches and moving slow. And Campbell, I really don't know. I'm still not holding my breath that he'll be back for this season. I think a lot of it on where you are as a football team.
Right.
Come mid-December.
Forged in Blue asks, what is more likely to happen this year? Buckner wins Defensive Player of the Year, Blackman gets Defensive Rookie of the Year, or Jonathan Taylor gets Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, and here at the end, a few questions we got before the old pod. I'm going with Taylor Rookie of the Year out of those three.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's got to change in a hurry. Defensive backs, do they even get those awards? I feel like no one votes for defensive backs. So, and Buckner, you need more from Buckner. You do.
Right.
Again, we talked about it last week. The sacks, the tackles for loss, okay. His individual numbers he can't just be, he's absorbing all this and he's creating opportunities for other guys. You still need some individual production. And that's something that we really drove home when this signing happened.
Right. This next one comes from Tanner. Did you ever think you'd be hearing Xavier Rhodes named as a, quote, way too early Defensive Player of the Year candidate? I've seen Buckner's name tossed around in that category too. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, Tanner, no. I think that's LOL. Xavier Rhodes is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I don't care if it was even entering Sunday.
Man,
no.
I wish he had that pick yesterday.
Dude,
Ugh.
got to have those. With how your defense was struggling, you got to have those, man. That could have been a huge play. Huge.
This one's from Benji. How much is Rivers hurting the run game? I don't feel like defenses have any fear of him going over the top. Hope you're doing well. Thanks again for all the great content.
Yeah, I mean, it is a good point. Yeah, that is a good point, Benji. I think a little bit there, but it's like, did Ballard or did Brissett really stress it? That much for you? I don't know. I still see some vertical stuff down the seam. You would think a safety would have to stay back a little bit there, but no, that is a fair point.
All right, two more. This one comes from Dad Talks. Why has Desmond Patton not been activated yet to play with how much we are hurting at wide receiver?
I mean, just simply, I thought it was a redshirt year for him. I think he's more protected on the 53. Now, if there's validity behind he's beating press coverage on a routine basis or whatever he said about why he made the team, then I'd throw him out there. But I never believed Patman would give you something year one. I mean, he came from a much different offense, didn't do a whole lot of route tree stuff. So, yeah, I mean, he is a healthy scratch every week.
The last one's from Jeff. Is it Strausser's scheme that is hurting the run game they decided after the coaching change?
Dude, I just think you're just kind of getting whipped physically. It's you had a great rushing attack last year with Strausser, taking over for Gouge. And some penalties, man. Nelson keeps on getting a couple penalties, although that hold was very weak on him.
You shed the block.
Yeah, that was like, what? Yeah. I don't think it's that much on Strausser, but it's probably a fair comment. All right, I got two that snuck in here. Cameron, I love Reich and Ballard, but I'm at the end of my rope listening to them cover for poor play. Vinny last year, Rivers this year. Do they think we're idiots, or are they blinded by old guys they have ties to? Cameron, again, this goes back to something we talked about of just you like to hear them publicly say things that make us think we aren't idiots. Ballard oftentimes says, you guys watch the same game we do. That's kind of his way of being like, I'm not going to say how I really feel, but you guys watch the same game. So, and think about it. You call Brissett a top 20 quarterback, but then you make a change at quarterback. Your actions, again, cannot mirror this. I mean, they sound like Colleen Bowen talking about me after every round of golf I've ever played. Oh, yeah, I tried hard. God love you, Mom, and thank you for the support. But, it's not all rose petals. Kevin 3-putted 4 times and, couldn't get up and down from 40 yards on a par 5. We don't need to hand out the third grade participation trophy and rave about the kid who struck out every at bat. It's like, this is the NFL. And then Kevin asked this question. Are you disappointed in Rivers' performance so far this year or in the play calling? Taylor seemed to be getting good chunks. Only to feed him the ball 12 times on the ground seems to be poor play calling. Man, Taylor in the first half, though, 4 for 13. Hines, 1 for 3. Not a lot of pop there from the run game.
Yeah.
I'm probably more disappointed in the play calling. Rivers has not been that far out of the norm for me. You're going to have highs and lows. You're going to have volatility with them. It is a roller coaster having Phillip Rivers your quarterback. I mean, again, I laughed in March. I'm like, folks, you're going to get entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be entertainment that you want for 16 weeks, but don't complain about entertainment. He will give you that. He's giving you that. Highs, lows. So I would say the play calling. Situationally, man. Just, woof.
Yeah.
All right. That's all of them. Man, we had a lot.
We did.
I think we're going to have a few
I
more.
expected more,
Really?
to be honest.
Yeah, I think I've got a few more in the can for Wednesday.
Cool.
We'll come back on Bengals, like we said. Touched on that. And then the bye week, which I guess the NFL schedule, who knows, but hopefully it'll be status quo for the Colts.
Right.
Anything else on your mind? Did I miss anything? I think that covers pretty much everything.
No, as much as yesterday stunk, and we all agree that game stinks, with the way the Titans are right now, and who knows with the COVID, we're still kind of in the driver's seat for this division. So let's not worry about it just yet.
Yeah, I am I don't know if I'll go driver's seat for the division. Yes, COVID is who knows with the Titans, but I will still say I think you'll be a playoff team. Right now, if playoffs started today, you'd be outside looking in. Okay, you're one spot out. I still think it's a playoff team. And again, 5-2 record-wise. You feel I'm not like panic red neon light right now. I'm trying to let's all breathe. Let's get through Monday. It can be chaotic. Sun's gonna rise. Maybe not. Sun didn't rise today. But calm.
Yeah.
And realize that there will be more barometers. There will be games that say, all right, how do you look against Baltimore? How do you look against Green Bay? Week 16 at Pittsburgh. How do you look? It might be ugly. But if you can make some changes, get the run game going, be better situationally. 1 of 4 in the red zone yesterday, Chris. You finish off a couple of those drives. This shootout might have had some juice to it.
Mm-hmm.
There are questions. I don't know if those answers will come, but there are questions that the Colts will still have 11 more games to try and answer.
True.
He's Chris Presley. I'm Kevin Bowen. K Bowen, 1070 on Twitter, 1075 The Fan. Talk to you Wednesday.